Well, hello and welcome back to Greg's Game Room. Now, the other night I went and saw the new Sylvester Stallone recut of Rocky IV, Rocky vs. Drago. And after seeing the movie, here's the review that my friend sent me via text. It's bad. Now, I'm not going to go that far. I believe the recut of the movie has its merits, so I kind of wanted to make a video discussing what I think's good and what I think's bad about the movie. First of all, we've been watching the original cut of this movie for 36 years, so I really think our loyalty to nostalgia might color our opinion of this new recut. And I was thinking that it's going to take me quite a while before this new version kind of really gels in my mind, and if I prefer this version over the original or vice versa. Now, I've always really liked the Rocky films, and for me they were really just kind of fun movies to watch until Rocky Balboa came out. And I talked to a friend of mine at church who had all 5 of the original Rockies on DVD. Now, this is back in 2006, before we had Netflix and could watch them online all the time. And he was really kind of worried to loan me out his DVD set, because he was just a huge Rocky fan and really truly believed in the whole overcoming adversity thing. So he was extremely apprehensive about loaning me his DVD set, but he did. And ever since then, I've seen these movies in a totally different light. They're not really sports movies. I mean, they're really about overcoming challenges and seeing how far you can push yourself. And I think Stallone said it best in Rocky Balboa when he was talking to his son out on the street about how nothing is going to hit harder than life, and that it's really not about how hard you can hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and still keep moving forward. And that really resonates with me. All right, now let's go ahead and start talking about the recut of the movie, and I want to frame it as Stallone did when he was talking about Apollo in the documentary. He said that Apollo died because he was unable to change. And I was rewatching the original cut earlier, and Apollo said, when there's no more wars for warriors to fight, then there's nothing left for us. And Rocky is trying to convince him that no, there's more to it than that. You need to move past that. And I think, in a sense, we the audience are Apollo. We don't want to change. We don't want to move forward from what we saw in the original cut. So I really think we need to be open and, kind of give this version of the movie a chance. All right, so from this point forward, it's going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the new Stallone recut of Rocky vs. Drago, Rocky IV, then stop the video now. Alright, first thing I want to do is talk about what I feel is the bad parts of this version of the movie. First of all, Stallone rehashes, a good bit of Rocky III, and I think that may have been to kind of give the audience a better understanding, who may not have seen Rocky III, the relationship between Rocky and Apollo. But, I mean, honestly, I don't really think that was all that necessary. That leads into cutting out a huge portion of the beginning of the movie, which was, after the promise fight, which we don't see the promise fight either between Apollo and Rocky back in the gym, which that's kind of disappointing to me. In the original, we see Rocky driving back up. He sees his son. None of that's there. There's no scenes with the robot. All of Paulie's birthday scenes were cut, which is kind of sad. But also, another really important scene, I feel, is the scene between Rocky and Adrian. He goes up to the bedroom with a cake, it's their anniversary, so he gives her a gift and they discuss, their life together and all that. And that's not in the movie. That I feel that was a huge mistake to take that part out. As for the robot, I can understand why that was taken out. I mean, he's kind of cartoony and kind of makes the whole rest of the movie kind of goofy, But, I mean, I always like the robot. But the way that we do get into the movie is a little jarring. It goes straight from the end of Rocky III into Apollo's pool, which I thought that was kind of a strange choice, because, this is really Rocky's story. To go from the end of Rocky III straight over to Apollo, it was very jarring. Another thing that bothered me is that there was some duplicated scenes that, I think were a little bit more concise in the original cut. Like, Apollo comes to see Rocky and they're outside talking about, the Drago fight. And then they're inside talking about the same Drago fight. In the original cut, it's just they're inside talking about Drago. So that scene outside is kind of unnecessary, but it was included in this cut. And I'm not really sure why. Why did Stallone feel that we needed to hammer this home so often? Maybe he thought it was a good idea for Apollo to try to convince Rocky to help him. I mean, I don't know. I think that was a little too much. Also, there was a clip in the montage that was repeated. I don't know if Stallone noticed this or not, but during the end fight montage, there's this whole scene with Paulie and Duke, and Paulie is grabbing Duke's head, oh, he's gonna win, and that was in the montage, and then that was also at the end. That was a repeated clip. I don't know, maybe they just didn't have a clip to put there, so they just repeated this one, but I don't know, that's kind of annoying to me. And then the next point is that there was some stuff that was completely removed. I mean, we talked about the robot earlier, which, I like the robot, but more importantly, the scenes with Burt Young were taken out because he was in those scenes with the robot. And I feel he really got shafted in this version. Also, Bridget Nielsen's scenes were almost completely taken out. And I don't know if that has anything to do with Stallone being married to her at one point, or maybe she didn't want to be in it anymore, or maybe they had a falling out. I don't know all the backstory on that. I just know that she was barely in the movie. And then during the montage at the end, when Rocky's running up the mountain and everything, there was a quick clip in the original where Rocky grabs the picture of Drago off his mirror and crumbles it. I don't know why that was changed. Maybe he didn't want it to appear that Rocky was seeking revenge. I don't know, but I mean, Rocky's not a perfect character. He's not a perfect person, so it's okay to seek revenge, as long as by the end of the film, you realize that that was not the best way to go. And finally, of the bad points, I will say that the film is just too short. I mean, I heard that it was only 2 minutes longer than the original hour and 30 minutes running time. I feel like we were kind of sold a bill of goods because I had heard that there was 40 extra minutes. Well, there really isn't 40 extra minutes. It's more like 40 changed minutes from the original. I really wanted more to the story, not less. In the documentary, Stallone said that there were clips that he included in order to give the moments a little bit more time to breathe. There's a very clear moment with Adrian on the stairs, and she yells down at him, "You can't win." And in the original cut, he almost immediately replies back, "Oh, Adrian." And in the new cut, she says, "You can't win." And then just Rocky kind of he takes that thought in, and after a moment, then he gives her the Adrian. I kind of like that he did it that way. It shows a little bit more depth to the characters, but to keep the film the same length as the original by stretching out some of these other scenes, I think that was a mistake. You can stretch out those scenes, that's fine. It's just that I feel like you don't have to take out so much just to keep the balance of the running time. I feel like he was trying to keep it at the same basic running time. Basically what I'm saying is, just give us more. You don't have to take away, just give us more. Also, another part of the beginning and ending, actually, that I didn't really care for was that they changed the whole Eye of the Tiger song. I think that was at the beginning in the original cut of the movie, but it was at the end of this cut, so I'm not sure why Stallone did that. Maybe it was because he's trying to say that both of these two movies are really kind of one movie put together. I don't know, but I think that Rocky IV deserves its own identity, and to continually go back to the song that made Rocky III popular, I think that was a misstep. And now I want to discuss a few things that bothered some, but, really don't bother me all that much. The first thing is that Stallone changed some scenes to add different reactions from the characters, and I don't know, I think he may have done that to kind of bring the tone of the movie to be a little bit more serious. There was one in particular during the Apollo and Drago press conference at the beginning where Apollo makes like a joke, and in the original, the wives kind of laugh at it, but in the recut, they are a little bit more, ooh, he probably shouldn't have said that. I think Stallone was trying to make it a little bit more of a serious in tone style movie, which is in line with what he did with the original two and, kind of three. The other thing was the throwing of the towel scene. Now that, originally it kind of bothered me at first that, Rocky does not have this conflicted moment where he wants to throw in the towel, but he just doesn't. And I watched another clip with Stallone where he says that
before Rocky could have stopped the fight and didn't. This time, he's dropping the towel, but that punch hits at the same time. So as the towel drops, everything drops, his life drops. He's just a second late.
He did that on purpose because he wanted to show Apollo failing or falling at the same time as Rocky failing or falling. And Rocky did throw the towel, just too late. And again, that kind of bothered me at first, but as I start to think about it a little bit more, it starts to make a little more sense. All right, now let me talk about what I think are the good parts of this version of the movie. First of all, the characters are way fleshed out better. You know, like as I was saying earlier with those scenes with Rocky and Adrian on the stairs, the moment where she tells him he can't win, it sinks in a little bit more. You start to put yourself in the place of that character and kind of feel what they're feeling. You start to understand them a little bit better. I mean, especially Drago. He may not be as scary as he was in the original, but you feel a little bit more empathy towards the character and what he's going through. I mean, he's a person. He's not a robot. And I think it's funny that Stallone kind of took two robots out of the movie, the Paulie birthday robot and Ivan Drago being a robot. So yeah, in this version of the movie, I feel Drago is a little bit more fleshed out. He's a real character. He has his own emotions and his motivations. And in the original cut, you kind of get that at the end when he says, you know, I'm fighting for me, and he pushes the guy away. But in this one, you know, he has that moment where he says, soon all world will know my name, Drago, Drago. And I know some people didn't like the delivery of that line, but it's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. So anyway, I feel that a really important aspect of this recut is that the characters are more fleshed out and you understand them better. Also, Apollo as well. You kind of get a better feeling of what's going on in his mind. And speaking of Apollo, the funeral scene was much better, much better. I mean, in the original, it almost seemed like an afterthought. It's like, let's just move on to the next thing. And I think that's what Stallone was thinking back then. It's like, nobody wants to watch a funeral. Come on, let's move on to the next part. But in this one, he really slows down, and I'm getting kind of choked up thinking about it. He slows down and gives you that moment that Apollo really deserves. Apollo deserved to have a wonderful funeral. And Duke gives a really wonderful eulogy towards Apollo. And I mean, that's undeniable. That scene is just way better in the recut. Also, I feel that Rocky and Adrian are a little bit more connected in this version of the movie, except for the fact that he took that scene out at the beginning where he gives her the gift and they discuss life and all that. I feel that she represents everyone's fear of the unknown and trying to overcome those things. I mean, you know, we all have challenges to overcome, and we all have to get past that little piece of fear in order to reach that accomplishment. She is that fear for Rocky. But the important thing is, he needs her. He needs that fear, because without fear, you just jump into something without thinking about it. She's what he needs. She's that piece of what he needs. And I feel like that was a little bit more conveyed in this. I really liked the recut version of the car montage. I liked seeing a lot of those older scenes from the previous films, but they were in black and white as a way to remind you that this is something that happened in the past. It does seem a little long, but I mean, I'll forgive it just because I love that song and I love that part of the movie. So I think that scene was way better. And as I had mentioned earlier, I feel like with all the changes that he made, it's a little more grounded in reality. It's a little less cartoony than the original one. And it kind of falls in line better with the original movies. I think I said that earlier, but I really just want to reiterate, of all of the Rocky movies, that's always the one that stands out as kind of the weird one. You know, it's the summer blockbuster movie. It's not really a film like the original Rocky is. It's what I consider to be a movie. And I feel like Stallone adding these scenes made it a little less cartoony and a little more like a film, more in line with the originals. And lastly, and most importantly, the improvement of the fighting scenes were just, I feel like they were just so much better. Some people have pointed out that the punching sound effects in the original version were like shotgun sounds. And, you know, I guess maybe my brain has never really noticed that, but I did notice that in this version, it just seemed more real. Like there was more stakes actually involved. And I think that's because, well, you know, the sound effects is one thing that was changed to improve that, but also the way that it was cut, the way the scenes flowed. They seem to flow a little bit better. Also, very, very importantly, I feel like this version really shows you that Apollo, he was fighting for his life. I mean, I kind of laugh at that, but he truly was in more ways than one. He was fighting Drago, of course, but he was also fighting with himself, trying to overcome, you know, the inability to change. And part of the reason why it makes it better also is because it brings Drago to a level of a person. You know, Duke says, famous line, he says, "You see, he's not a machine, he's a man." If you've been thinking that Drago was this scary machine the entire time, then how was Rocky able to beat him? You know, there has to be a balance between the fight with Apollo and the fight with Rocky. You know, before it's like really, really unbalanced. It's like, how did Apollo get clobbered by this guy so easily and Rocky didn't? So I think Stallone had to kind of bring that back down to balance a little bit more. And that means making Drago less of a robot and more of a man, more of a human being. Both of the fights, I think, were just way, way better. And let's be honest, aside from those character moments that you get in the movie with Adrian and Rocky and Apollo and even Paulie, the real draw of these movies is seeing Rocky overcome his rival. So yeah, the fight scenes were better, the character interactions were better, the funeral was better, the montages were better for the most part. So really, when you get down to it, there's only a few minor changes to this. The important parts of the story are still there, and they have all been improved. So, my final thoughts about Rocky versus Drago, the recut of Stallone's Rocky 4. Again, I really hope that the nostalgia that I feel towards this movie does not color my opinion of the recut. I don't want to be Apollo in this case. I want to be Rocky. I want to be the one who can understand moving forward and not necessarily ignoring the past, but bringing the past with us. We aren't the same person that we were, 36 years ago when this movie came out. We learn and grow and move forward. So if you want to kind of get a better feel for what Stallone was thinking when he made this, watch that documentary that's out there. I was really curious to know why he made this change, why he did this. And it really is an eye-opener. And like I said, I mean, it's going to take a little time for this version to gel in my mind. The way it stands now, I still really kind of prefer the original just because, again, that's what I'm comfortable with. It's that warm blanket that I've had for 36 years. But the new one, there is a lot of things in this version to like. If you have seen the new Rocky vs. Drago recut, leave your comments down below and tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong. Really appreciate you watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.